Hi, Paul. It
Yeah.
is amazing to see you. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk with me today. I know there's a bit of a time difference, so it's the evening here and it's sort of midday where you are. Yes,
Yeah, it's 4 p.m. ish.
awesome.
Too bad.
So just to let people know that I'm talking to you from Manchester and you are in Mexico, is that right?
Yes, in Cancun.
Fantastic. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk to you about your work. Just so that people have a bit of context, I'm Chantal Basson and I'm a consultant psychologist for children for Pennine Care NHS Trust. And the reason that we're doing this is because we've known each other for a while. We have connected over a love of climbing and board games with our respective partners. So
Yeah,
it's a little bit
massive
left field,
nerds.
isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So just so people understand why we're talking, tell us a little bit about what you do, Paul.
Yes. Okay. So I'm a lecturer at Queen Mary University of London, and I've sort of trained as a chemical engineer, but all of my research is focused on sort of decarbonising energy systems. So trying to work out how to make all of the sort of the energy that we consume a bit better or a bit less bad, I guess. So thinking about both sort of fossil fuels and also renewable energy, just trying to work out how we can improve it in terms of its sort of climate impacts, but also some of its sort of air quality and impacts, and also how to make it cheaper. So I do a lot of that stuff, and I also teach as well. So as part of my job, I teach lots of chemical engineers about, for example, so I teach them how to make chemical plants safe, so how to prevent them from blowing up, and a few other bits and pieces as well.
Sounds extremely important, stopping chemical plants from blowing up.
Yeah, it's a critical one. It's a good skill.
Yeah. Okay. And you're on your way to board a ship, am I right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, not a cruise ship, but a slightly less glamorous ship, a liquefied natural gas carrier ship.
Okay. And you're going to be there to measure methane emissions, am I right?
Yeah, you're completely right. So I'm going to go onto a ship for around about a month. We don't know exactly, but around about a month. And I'm going to go and look for a specific type of emission, so methane emissions. So LNG, liquefied natural gas, is the thing that this big ship is carrying. It's moving it from the generators in the US to places like Europe and China. And so these big ships that basically hold natural gas, and that's mainly methane. And so I'm going to be looking on the ship, try to work out if there are any methane emissions that are coming from the ship, which is really important because methane's a very potent greenhouse gas. So it's like
Yes.
this. It's like the second most important greenhouse gas next to CO2.
So am I right in thinking it causes an awful lot of damage?
Massively, yeah. So methane causes about 25%, so about a quarter of today's man-made global warming. So it's
Wow.
really big. It's about 60% of what CO2 does. So yeah, it's not really. We've mainly focused on carbon dioxide, haven't we? The
Yeah.
past decades, but I think people are more realizing the importance of methane recently.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's that that's made me change my diet and eat a climate friendly diet.
Yes, with
And
less beef.
absolutely. It was very almost no beef now really in our diet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Paul, can I ask you, are you expecting to find large amounts of methane emissions, or are you kind of hoping that you won't?
Oh, that's a good question. So yeah, there's two sides, I suppose. From a world perspective, it'd be nice if we didn't find any emissions, because that means that we're not doing as much damage to the world as we might. And I guess selfishly, from an academic perspective, if I don't find any emissions, then I'm going to have to create quite a boring research paper on the back of this. So
Okay.
So, yeah,
Okay.
I think overall it'd be nice if there was not many emissions, and to be honest, we kind of expect there not to be massive quantities of methane emissions, but the issue is that nobody's ever done this before. So nobody's gone on, not that anybody's published anyway, nobody's gone onto a big LNG carrier ship and gone to try and measure all types of methane emissions from the different sources before. So it's kind of like a first of the kind study, which makes it all the more exciting.
That's really exciting. So given that nobody has published this before, how on earth did it come about?
Well, so I've been looking at methane emissions from natural gas supply chains for maybe about 6 or 7 years now. And so mainly I've just been doing some sort of modeling using other people's data and looking at different parts of the supply chain. So there's been a lot of work done in the US by sort of some environmental NGOs and also some companies and also some government stuff to go and measure methane emissions, and we've kind of discovered that actually they're a bit higher than what we expected, and so that's been interesting. And so there's a big drive now to work out, well, how much methane emissions do we see in other parts of the supply chain or in other regions? So we know quite well around sort of the North American region, but we don't really know very well in other regions. And one of the big sort of data gaps that we have is in the LNG parts of the supply chain. So yeah, so this is where basically instead of just sort of piping natural gas straight to your house, for example, from the well, you end up liquefying it, so cooling it down really low temperatures, so sort of minus 160 degrees, and then putting it in a ship and transporting it really long distances. And nobody's really looked much at methane emissions from those LNG parts of the supply chain yet. So that's the idea.
Wow. And I understand that actually is a really expensive project.
Yeah.
So how have you managed to get people to fund you?
Yes, so I've been talking about it for years and years, to be honest. So I've been trying to get this project underway for probably about 3 years now, and I've tried to talk to governments. I've tried to talk to a bunch of different companies. I've tried to talk to one environmental NGO as well, and it's been really difficult because, so like we were saying, it's the first, so nobody's really done it before. So there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of how you can actually do it. And so with that uncertainty comes quite high cost. So it's been really difficult to find people willing to sort of to put down some money for us academics to go and do some measurements. But so I've found a couple of companies, so actual people who produce and transport gas, who have realised, yeah, we need to get on this. And so it's sort of a consortium that have come together to fund this project. And I should also say it's the first time that I've led a project as a principal investigator, so quite proud of this. But so it's definitely been my baby, sort of trying to get the go ahead for the last couple of years, and at the end of last year, finally got the green light.
Amazing, which is pretty incredible to get it going, especially in the midst of a global pandemic, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make it very easy, to be honest. It wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't going to be easy in the best of times. It definitely adds a layer of complication, which is why I'm sitting in Mexico right now rather than being at home or being in the US. So, yes.
Yeah, I understand it's been logistically really tricky. Tell us a little bit about sort of the journey that you're on and what you still got to do in order to get onto this ship.
Right. So we spent quite a few months in terms of planning the trip, and so sort of trying to get the equipment together. I'm working with an American company called SLR, who are also doing some of the measurements. They're really experienced in this stuff, so they'll help me out. The idea is that I'm supposed to be joining the ship in the US, and so we've identified the sort of the ports that we'll go from, which is called I believe we're starting from Corpus Christi, which is in It's close to Texas, I think.
Yeah.
And so yes, so we're joining there, and then the ship is going to Europe probably, or possibly Taiwan, which is an uncertainty. But so I'm going to be on this ship for around about a month, and so the main requirement for me is to get into the US. But as you might know, at the moment it's kind of difficult to travel, both from
noticed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Both from the UK and also to the US. And unfortunately, at the moment, and for the last bunch of months, people from the UK have not been able to get into the US. Or I think the actual rule is that if you've been in the UK for the last 2 weeks, you can't get into the US. So we've had to try and find a workaround in terms of me boarding in the US. And so there's a couple of countries that I could go to that will then allow me to get into the US. So I'm come to Mexico, spending 2 weeks in Mexico, which is terrible, which is lovely, quite frankly. But it's mixed. Let's say it's mixed, but there are worse places to be. So yes, 2 weeks here before I go to the US, and then fingers crossed they'll let me in.
Oh yeah, absolutely, fingers crossed. And I'm going to be really looking forward to hearing about your journey. But I also understand that, as well as the kind of logistics that have been difficult, you've had, let's call it a slight hiccup with some extraordinarily expensive equipment. Tell us a bit about that.
It's true, yeah. It's true. So when I get on board the ship, I'm going to be using a few different pieces of equipment to detect methane. So the problem with methane is it's invisible to the naked eye. So you can't visually see it unless you've got a fancy camera. So if you've got an infrared camera, it's kind of like, it looks like night vision. In fact, it's quite similar to night vision. So if you use this like infrared camera, then you can actually visualize the methane emissions coming from the pipes. And then there's one other piece of equipment that involves sort of pointing a laser to work out concentrations of methane. But anyway, so I've spent quite a while in getting together these pieces of kit, and yes, they're rather expensive pieces of kit. It's a bit horrifying actually how expensive they are. They're probably worth more than me. And so that's fine. So I've been I took the very expensive camera in my hand luggage to Mexico. I put the other piece of kit in the hold, and that was fine. And I picked everything up from when I after I got to Mexico City. I picked everything up, got my luggage, and then customs asked me to look at my equipment, and they have seized my equipment, unfortunately. So something that I didn't quite realise is that if you are bringing any sort of expensive equipment into a country, no matter if you're taking it out shortly and not using it there, regardless of that, you need to do something about it and possibly pay lots of money. So currently I am sitting here in Mexico, and I've been here for about 5 days, and I'm still without my equipment. It's being held at customs, which is thoroughly nerve-wracking, to be honest. So I arrived in Mexico City. It was the equivalent of probably about 2 a.m. in the morning in the UK time, very tired and grumpy. And then they seized my equipment, and not just tired and grumpy, but a bit emotional. So yeah, and I had to go and get a flight to Cancun to get to my hotel. So yes. Anyway, so that was slightly painful, and it's not sorted out yet. So I'm talking to lots of lawyers and customs agents and people and things, talking about things that I don't understand, and just sort of fingers crossed that we can sort it out in time.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, again, I'm going to be really looking forward to hearing a bit more about that as time goes on, and really, really hoping that you get that back.
Thank you.
At least by the end of the trip. So, how are you managing? I know that you work at university, you do research, but you also teach, as you said. How are you managing your day job while you're in Mexico?
With a bit of difficulty, to be honest. So where I am, I'm 5 hours behind the UK. So it's sort of, what is it, 4:30 for me now, and it's 9:30 for you guys. And so Yes, so I'm not just taking the 2-week holiday, unfortunately. I have to do my day job, which involves quite a lot of teaching. And so it unfortunately involves me getting up at around about 4 a.m. in the morning to do a few teaching slots. So particularly hard was one this week where it was a 3-hour lecture I was giving. Yeah, it's a bit on the brutal side, to be honest, because also I'm not just having sort of meetings with people in the UK, but I'm also having meetings with people in the US in the afternoon about this project. So so it's kind of long days, but
Yeah.
so, and it's easy to whinge about this stuff, but I do manage to sort of supplement the meetings with zipping out to the swimming pool. So it's not all bad, should we say.
And on that note, it's been awesome to talk to you about all of this. I can't wait to talk to you again. I will speak to you very soon, Paul.
Yes.
Take good care of yourself. Stay safe. See you soon.
Well, I'm going to the pool now. So bye.
Bye.